Legendary Passages, Episode 47, Labor's End. Amazons, Geryon, and Hesperides, from the Library of Apollodorus. Last time, we covered the final two labors of Hercules. This time we shall review more traditional versions of the Amazons, the Cattle of Geryon, and the Apples of the Hesperides. On his way to the Amazons, Hercules landed on the island of Paros, and after a misunderstanding, 2 of his men and 4 sons of Minos were dead. Hercules ends up taking the 2 sons of Androgeus along with him. Hercules kills Hippolyte, takes her girdle, and sails for Troy. There he rescues Princess Hesione from a sea monster for a price. On his way to fetch the Cattle of Geryon, the sun itself gives him a golden goblet to use as a ship. He kills the 2-headed hound guarding the cattle, and Geryon as well, and sails away in the goblet. Hercules did not know where the golden apples were, and had many adventures searching for them. Eventually, he rescued Prometheus, who told him to send Atlas to pick the apples for him. Next time, we uncover a long-forgotten war, Amazons versus Atlantis. Labor's End, a legendary passage from the Library of Apollodorus, translated by J.G. Frazer. The 9th labor he enjoined on Hercules was to bring the belt of Hippolyte. She was queen of the Amazons, who dwelt about the river Eurymedon, a people great in war, where they cultivated the manly virtues, and if ever they gave birth to children through intercourse with the other sex, they reared the females, and they pinched off the right breasts so they might not be trammeled by them in throwing the javelin, but they kept the left breasts, that they might suckle. Now Hippolyte had the belt of Ares in token of her superiority to all the rest. Hercules was sent to fetch this belt because Admete, daughter of Eurystheus, desired to get it. So taking with him a band of volunteer comrades in a single ship, he set sail and put into the island of Paros, which was inhabited by the sons of Minos, to wit, Eurymedon, Chryses, Nephalion, and Philolaus. But it chanced that 2 of these in the ship landed and were killed by the sons of Minos. Indignant at this, Hercules killed the sons of Minos on the spot, and besieged the rest closely, till they sent envoys to request that in the room of the murdered men he would take 2 whom he pleased. So he raised the siege, and taking on board the sons of Androgeus, son of Minos, to wit, Alcaeus and Sthenelus, he came to Mysia, to the court of Lycus, son of Dascylus, and was entertained by him. And in a battle between him and the king of the Berbices, Hercules sided with Lycus and slew many, amongst others King Mygdon, brother of Amycus, and he took much land from the Berbices and gave it to Lycus, who called it all Heraclea. Having put in at the harbor of Themyscira, he received a visit from Hippolyte, who inquired why he was come, and promised to give him the belt. But Hera, in the likeness of an Amazon, went up and down the multitude, saying that the strangers had arrived were carrying off the queen. So the Amazons in arms charged on horseback down on the ship. But when Heracles saw them in arms, he suspected treachery, and killing Hippolyte, stripped her of her belt. After fighting the rest, he sailed away and touched at Troy. But it chanced that the city was then in distress, consequently on the wrath of Apollo and Poseidon. For desiring to put the wantonness of Eurymedon to the proof, Apollo and Poseidon assumed the likeness of men, and undertook to fortify Pergamum for wages. But when they had fortified it, he would not pay them their wages. Therefore Apollo sent a pestilence, and Poseidon a sea monster, which, carried up by a flood, snatched away the people of the plain. But as the oracles foretold deliverance from these calamities, if Eurymedon would expose his daughter Hesione to be devoured by the sea monster, he exposed her by fastening her to the rocks near the sea. Seeing her exposed, Hercules promised to save her on the condition of receiving from Eurymedon the mares which Zeus had given in compensation for the rape of Ganymede. On Eurymedon saying that he would give them, Hercules killed the monster and saved Hesione. But when Laomedon would not give the stipulated reward, Hercules put to sea after threatening to make war on Troy. And he touched at Enos, where he was entertained by Poultus. And as he was sailing away, he shot and killed on the Aenean beach a lewd fellow, Sarpedon, son of Poseidon and brother of Poultus. And having come to Thasos and subjugated the Thracians who dwelt in the island, he gave it to the sons of Androgeus to dwell in. From Thasos he proceeded to Torone, and there, being challenged to wrestle by Polygonus and Telegonus, sons of Proteus, son of Poseidon, he killed them in the wrestling match. And having brought the belt to Mycenae, he gave it to Eurystheus. As the 10th labor, he was ordered to fetch the kine of Geryon from Erythea. Now Erythea was an island near the ocean. It is now called Gadira. This island was inhabited by Geryon, son of Chryses, by Calyro, daughter of Ocean. He had the body of 3 men grown together and joined in one at the waist, but parted in 3 from the flanks and thighs. He owned red kine, of which Euryton was the herdsman, and Orthus, 2-headed hound, begotten by Typhon on Echidna, was the watchdog. So journeying through Europe to fetch the kine of Geryon, he destroyed many wild beasts, and set foot in Libya. And proceeding to Tartessus, he erected as tokens of his journey 2 pillars over against each other at the boundaries of Europe and Libya. But being heated by the sun on his journey, he bent his bow at the god, who, in admiration of his hardihood, gave him a golden goblet in which he crossed the ocean. And having reached Erythea, he lodged on Mount Abas. However, the dog, perceiving him, rushed at him, but he smote it with his club. And when the herdsman Euryton came to the help of the dog, Hercules killed him also. But Menoetes, who was there pasturing the kine of Hades, reported to Geryon what had occurred, and he, coming up with Hercules beside the river Anthemus, as he was driving away the kine, joined in battle with him, and was shot dead. And Hercules, embarking the kine in the goblet, and sailing across to Tartessus, gave back the goblet to the sun. And passing through Abdera, he came to Liguria, where Iambion and Dersinus, sons of Poseidon, attempted to rob him of the kine, but he killed them and went on his way through Tyrrhenia. But at Rhegium a bull broke away and hastily plunged into the sea, swam across to Sicily, and having passed through the neighboring country, since called Italy after it, for the Tyrrhenians called the bull Italus, came to the plain of Eryx, who reigned over the Elymi. Now Eryx was a son of Poseidon, and he mingled the bull with his own herds. So Hercules entrusted the kine to Hephaestus, and hurried away in search of the bull. He found it in the herds of Eryx, and when the king refused to surrender it unless Hercules should beat him in a wrestling bout, Hercules beat him thrice, killed him in the wrestling, and taking the bull, drove it with the rest of the herd to the Ionian Sea. But when he came to the creeks of the sea, Hera afflicted the cows with the gadfly, and they dispersed among the skirts of the mountains of Thrace. Hercules went in pursuit, and having caught some, drove them to the Hellespont, but the remainder were thenceforth wild. Having, with difficulty, collected the cows, Hercules blamed the river Strymon, and whereas it had been navigable before, he made it unnavigable by filling it with rocks. And he conveyed the kine and gave them to Eurystheus, who sacrificed them to Hera. When the labors had been performed in 8 years and a month, Eurystheus ordered Hercules, as an 11th labor, to fetch golden apples from the Hesperides, for he did not acknowledge the labor of the cattle of Augeas, nor that of the Hydra. These apples were not, as some have said, in Libya, but on Atlas among the Hyperboreans. They were presented by Earth to Zeus after his marriage with Hera, and guarded by an immortal dragon with 100 heads, offspring of Typhon and Echidna, which spoke with many and diverse sorts of voices. With it the Hesperides were also on guard, to wit, Aegle, Erythea, Hesperia, and Erethusa. So journeying, he came to the river Echidorus, and Cygnus, son of Ares and Pyrene, challenged him to single combat. Ares championed the cause of Cygnus and marshaled the combat, but a thunderbolt was hurled between the two and parted the combatants. And going on foot through Illyria, and hastening to the river Eridanus, he came to the nymphs, the daughters of Zeus and Themis. They revealed Nereus to him, and Hercules seized him while he slept, and though the god turned himself into all kinds of shapes, the hero bound him, and did not release him till he had learned from him where were the apples and the Hesperides. Being informed, he traversed Libya. That country was then ruled by Antaeus, son of Poseidon, who used to kill strangers by forcing them to wrestle. Being forced to wrestle with him, Hercules hugged him, lifted him aloft, broke, and killed him. For when he touched the earth, so it was that he waxed stronger, wherefore some said that he was a son of earth. After Libya, he traversed Egypt. That country was then ruled by Busiris, a son of Poseidon by Lysianassa, daughter of Apophis. This Busiris used to sacrifice strangers on an altar of Zeus in accordance with a certain oracle. For Egypt was visited with dearth for 9 years, and Frazer, a learned seer who had come from Cyprus, said that the dearth would cease if they slaughtered a stranger man in honor of Zeus every year. Busiris began by slaughtering the seer himself, and continued to slaughter the strangers who landed. So Hercules also was seized, and hauled to the altars, but he burst his bonds, and slew both Busiris and his son Aphidamus. And traversing Asia, he put into Thermodray, the harbor of the Lindians. And having loosed one of the bullocks from the cart of a cowherd, he sacrificed it and feasted. But the cowherd, unable to protect himself, stood on a certain mountain and cursed. Wherefore, to this day, when they sacrifice to Hercules, they do it with curses. And passing by Arabia, he slew Amathion, son of Tithonus, and journeying through Libya to the outer sea, he received the goblet from the sun. And having crossed to the opposite mainland, he shot on the Caucasus the eagle, offspring of Echidna and Typhon, that was devouring the liver of Prometheus, and he released Prometheus, after choosing for himself the bond of olive, and to Zeus he presented Chiron, who, though immortal, consented to die in his stead. Now Prometheus had told Hercules not to go himself after the apples, but to send Atlas, first relieving him of the burden of the sphere. So when he was come to Atlas in the land of the Hyperboreans, he took the advice and relieved Atlas. But when Atlas had received 3 apples from the Hesperides, he came to Hercules, and not wishing to support the sphere, he said that he would himself carry the apples to Eurystheus, bade Hercules to hold up the sky in his stead. Hercules promised to do so, but succeeded by craft in putting it on Atlas instead. For at the advice of Prometheus, he begged Atlas to hold up the sky till he should put a pad on his head. When Atlas heard that, he laid the apples down on the ground, and took the sphere from Hercules. And so Hercules picked up the apples and departed. But some say that he did not get them from Atlas, but that he plucked the apples himself after killing the guardian snake. And having brought the apples, he gave them to Eurystheus. But he, on receiving them, bestowed them on Hercules, from whom Athena got them, and conveyed them back again, for it was not lawful that they should be laid down anywhere.